Chapter 13, Health Promotion of the Preschooler and Family. Developmentally, these kids now have really stretched out. They're taller and slender. They no longer have that pot belly. They're sturdy. They're graceful. They no longer kind of waddle side to side, but they're very graceful and agile. They stand up very erect now. Their muscle development and their bone growth, however, are still have a lot of developing left. The real skills they're working on now are the gross and fine motor. They're walking, running, jumping, climbing, and they're getting better at those things all the time. Fine motor, they're drawing and dressing themselves, and again, really getting better at those all the time. Erickson says they're in the stage of initiative versus guilt. This is a stage these kids are learning, and they're energetic at learning everything: how to run, how to jump, how things work. They play, they work, they just do everything to the fullest. They don't stop. They have no slow motion button. They're running full speed all the time. And they're taking all this initiative. They're trying all these new things. Then they feel guilty if they go too far and they did something they weren't supposed to. So they've behaved inappropriately. Or they thought about doing something that they know they weren't supposed to. That's where the guilt comes in. So they're learning to balance taking all that initiative and trying all these new things and developing these new skills, but not going to the point that it leads them to feeling guilty about it. At this age, we really want to make sure kids understand that wishes cannot make things occur. I've heard any number of preschool-age siblings say, "It's my fault. My brother or sister is in the hospital. I wished they'd go away, and they got sick and went away." So they don't understand that their wishes don't affect actual events, and they need reassurance that that's not their fault. They're starting to develop that superego, that Freud's conscience, that awareness of right and wrong and being able to choose between the two. Still pretty rudimentary, but they're starting to develop that. Piaget has this kind of divided up. He calls this preoperational, but there's two different stages to it. The preconceptual phase between ages 2 and 4, and then the intuitive state or intuitive thought stage, which is ages 4 to 7. And the big thing they're doing here is shifting from being totally egocentric to being able to consider what others might be thinking, feeling. They're starting to understand someone else may have be sad or upset, even though I'm not. So being able to consider a different person's viewpoint. They don't really know right and left yet, although sometimes they'll use those words, but they don't know what right and left. They don't know that this direction's right and that direction's left, but they know over there to the right, even though they're saying the word, but they really just mean over there. Time's the same thing. They'll sometimes use words like today, tomorrow, but they don't really understand what they mean. And so when we're giving time frames, we need to reference it around things they understand. Like when Dora finishes, which is, instead of saying 30 minutes from now, or Mom will come after lunch, rather than Mom will come at 1 o'clock. I have had kids where we've said, Mom's coming back at dinner time, and they'll say, "Can I eat dinner now?" So they really don't quite understand that. If they eat dinner now, doesn't that mean Mom will come back now? And this age, they really engage in magical thinking. The thought or the line between pretend and real are not very clear. And part of that's fun, because when they're dressed up like a princess or a Power Ranger, they really think they might be. And it's kind of fun to see them acting in those ways. Kohlberg, this is moral development. He says, kids this age, they understand right and wrong, but they don't care why it's right or wrong. What they care is if it's right or good, I get rewarded. Mom's happy with me. If it's bad or, a wrong thing to do, I get punished. So they're really judging that good and bad, right and wrong, based on the consequence they get from it. So it's a very basic, they're starting to have that concept, but it's not abstract at all. It's based on what I get out of it. Spiritual development, this is Fowler. Kids this age, their idea of God is that God is a person with very physical characteristics. They're probably picturing Grandpa as God. But it is good for them to kind of go through this phase of spiritual development, because it's very closely linked to developing a conscience that, I can't hit somebody else even if I want to. It's, I need to share toys even if I don't want to. That sort of stuff. It's, even if you have a family that's not a religious family, this is still an important stage, so that when kids get to high school, they don't bully, or, if they've been bullied, go and shoot the kids who bullied them. So it's still an important stage. And at this stage, what we can encourage parents is that they need to be consistent with discipline, but make sure the child understands they're being disciplined for their action, not because they're a bad child. So the parent needs to reinforce that they love the child no matter what they do. But when you do things that are wrong things, there's punishments, but it doesn't mean that the parent loves you any less. So that's a pretty hard concept, but they're at this stage that they're starting to be able to understand that, and that's a good thing to reinforce. Okay, body image. They recognize male and female considerably younger than this. Now they're also starting to recognize who's the tall one, and who's the short one, who's the heavy one. They're really starting to see differences. This is also an age, if they hear prejudicial comments at home or biases against certain ethnic groups or fat people or I don't know, whatever, they'll start to learn that and start to internalize that. So it's important to try and avoid those things. And as I said, they really will compare themselves to their peers at this age. And at this age, they're very frightened of many things. In fact, this is the age where they have lots of fears. One of the things they're really afraid of is anything that disrupts their skin. They don't really understand their insides, and so anything that pokes to the inside, they're afraid if you give them an injection that all their blood's going to come pouring out that injection site. Or if they have surgery and you take all their insides out, how are they going to live? I mean, they don't have a good sense of how their body works, and they're very frightened of anything that disrupts that skin integrity. So Band-Aids are really important at this age. As long as it's got a bandage over it, it's going to be okay. Nothing can spill out of it. Development of sexuality. This is an age they really start to, they've known male and female and which one they are for a long time. But at this stage, usually they'll start out having a very strong attachment to the opposite sex parent, and then kind of transition into identifying and doing a lot of imitating of the same sex parent. Kind of towards the end of this, or during this age, they'll start to develop some modesty. And this is the age where a lot of sexual exploration happens. It's, they, rather than just I'm a girl, or I'm a boy, they're playing with their private parts. So kind of reinforcing that's something you don't do in public, but avoiding the, that's bad, and developing negative feelings towards their private areas. Socially, these kids now can separate from the parents. They are pretty much over separation anxiety, but as long as it's not too long. They do need the parents to come back for it to not be a really long separation. They are starting to work through unresolved fears. Again, I said this is the age where they do have lots of fears, and some of the ways they work through those is in their fantasies, their pretend games, and they're playing, giving them dolls and puppets and things that they can use that are appropriate to the fears that they're dealing with, and especially in the hospital. Dolls that match whatever they've had done are really helpful for this age. This is the age where they talk non-stop. Big vocabulary. They're starting to use decent sentences, and they ask why. They want to know how things work. They just ask questions continually. Socially, they like people. They like interacting. They become very social at this age, and they want to please you, particularly the parents. They're anxious to be praised and do what the parent wants. Play at this stage is associative play. So they've moved from that parallel play where they do the same thing but not interacting, to where they play a game with other kids. But I love watching kids at this stage, because they'll say, let's play monsters, and everybody runs around and growls and yells, and somebody will say, I'm the monster, come get me, and then when they're tired of being chased, they say, I'm the good guy, you're the monster. So there are no rules, really. The rules fluctuate as the game moves on. If you ask them, how do you play monsters, they'd look at you blankly, because, well, you just play monsters. They couldn't tell you rules, because there aren't really rules, but they're playing interactively, but they're not following organized rules. Physically, they can jump, run, climb. They can do tricycles at this age, that pedaling, sandboxes. They love wading pools. They like to play just to play. They don't ride their tricycle to get somewhere. They ride it just to ride the tricycle. They don't play in the sandbox to build something. They're just playing. So play is its own end. It's not a means to an end. So they love manipulative, creative, constructive, educational toys. They like it all at this age. They do like imitating, doing those things they see adults do, but they're also very imaginative and dramatic. They love dressing up, trains. If they're in the hospital, giving them some of those medical supplies, nurse kits, things like that would be great. At this age, that reality and fantasy are very intertwined, and that probably is part of why they have a lot of imaginary playmates at this age. It's not really a bad thing. It's fairly normal, and some parents may be concerned about it, and so just reassuring them that it's common at this age would be helpful. And here's a boy at this age. He's able to balance on that 1 foot or even hop on that 1 foot a little bit.